Good morning and welcome to NTV Today on this 10th day of August 2018. We're glad you could join us as we get into this month, and you know it's been a very busy time across the news circles. We know there's many things happening when it comes to the demolitions. As you know, this morning, rather you may not know, but we'll be giving you details and pictures of the same. This morning the UK mall was brought down, and there is the county government's continued push to ensure that they facilitate what has been stipulated in the NEMA Act in regards to safeguarding the environment. Riparian land should not be built on, and we had the president speaking very tough words yesterday, saying that all those officials who approved the construction of buildings on riparian land should be prosecuted, and we shall be seeing how that goes. And the DPP actually issued a statement saying that he has directed the DCI to investigate and give feedback in 21 days, and we shall be following that up for you, as well as many other things. We also have issues on corruption, and the EACC is having a function at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where we have some conversations in regards to corruption, and Mel Miendo is there, and we shall later on be crossing to Mombasa, where we also have the Attorney General speaking at the LSK forum, which was yesterday attended by the Chief Justice himself. And as would be the topical issue there that came up was the fact that there's need for more funding in the judiciary, and so the LSK gave their voice of support to the judiciary, saying they're going to play their part in supporting the creation of a judiciary fund. And so we shall be having that conversation going on, see what the Attorney General has to say on the same, and we shall also be crossing over to various parts of the country just to get a sense and the pulse of where the country is at in different things. You know, it's the day after the sugar report was rejected a second time by Parliament, which has brought a lot of questions, pretty much painting a picture of the cartels having won again. They're untouchable, it seems, from what we have seen, and that's a story that we had last night, and we shall be following up this for you in our continued coverage of the state of corruption. So now let's cross over to the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where we have the EACC event going on, and listening to exactly what's happening.
Don't do something wrong. I think we need to turn that round, so that we say every time somebody speaks, and start it with their children. Don't lie to them. It's not a long time when I said I was a department head. So the children who were born there are already departmental heads. So 30 more years. So it's not a long time. So if you help your children to have good integrity, then Kenya will be better. And lastly, commenting on what the CS said about when EACC comes, people panic. I think there's another one where I've noticed across different parts of government, where individuals refuse to take their responsibility at fear of they will be caught out. I think this is the time the good people should come out. This is the time individuals should take responsibility. As long as you can prove you do not benefit personally, and you're doing it for the country, and it's a good idea, it is in the program, stop fearing, start working. Let's not paralyze government because we are fighting corruption. This is the time government should come up. I believe the bad people are always 10, 20%, 30%, and because it became a way of life, it was almost people had kept quiet. This is the time for the good people to come out and say no, but also we lose more for inactivity of those who fear. So you see one paper, something that it should have been decided at a very junior level, being escalated all the way to the CS, because everybody wants to cover their back. That actually also is not good for our country. So if you think this is within your job description, it is within your authority, take the authority, make sure those things happen so that Kenyans can be served in 2 days instead of 10 days or 15 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Waziri, even for those very kind remarks. I really, there is no take home from here, just take one thing, that we are not investigating the ministry. If nothing else, just take home that we are not investigating the ministry. In fact, we are at the ministry because the ministry invited us there. I also want to add that we have undertaken, like I did say in my remarks, very many similar systems review in various organizations. In the counties, we are running over 20 counties where we have done the corruption risk assessment, which is part of a systems review. At this point, allow me to invite the CEO to take us through the process of the official launch after he makes his remarks. Karibu sana Bwana CEO.
The Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Honorable Mohamed Elmi, who at one point in our lives was my boss. And I can also be a witness and confirm that he is a man who does what he says. He doesn't do this and that like what he said, that the profession he just came from is interpreted to be. He means politics, because he was an MP, a minister, and so maybe he was in the wrong place then. Maybe he's back to the right place that he belongs. The PS, Madam Susan Mochache, the Vice Chair, EACC, Commissioner Sophia Lepucherit, the DCO, EACC, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a great day for us to be assembled here for the launch of the review into the systems, policies, procedures, and practices of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. I wish to express my gratitude to the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, for inviting the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to undertake this review. This is indeed a demonstration of your ministry's commitment to good governance and readiness to promote transparency and accountability in all the operations of the ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, corruption and unethical conduct is a scourge that affects all sectors of economies worldwide, and Kenya is not an exception. The effects of corruption are felt and seen in stifled development and economic growth, increased cost of doing business, poor service delivery, and lack of confidence in the public sector. In fact, the negative impact of corruption has not only been detrimental to social and economic development, but also to environmental sustainability. The EACC was invited by the ministry to undertake this examination. In addition, the Commission has from time to time received reports related to corruption and unethical behavior in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Some of these reports touch on the following areas: public procurement irregularities, bribery, fraudulent acquisition and disposal of public property, and conflict of interest, among others. I know that it may be not part of my list, but some of the things that have come to us, or complaints, including those we investigated, include even those that relate to plunder of forest, and especially dealing with the endangered species of plants or trees, including the cedars in Samburu and many other kind of plants and trees that we are working hard to preserve. So it's against this backdrop that the Commission is partnering with the Ministry to undertake the examination. The aim is to identify weaknesses, loopholes, avenues, and opportunities that may be exploited for propagation of corrupt practices and thereafter to offer appropriate advice on how to seal such loopholes. The speakers before me here have been repeatedly assuring you that this is not an investigations process. And we are talking from experience, because we've gone to institutions where our officers appear to undertake such like important exercises, most of the times on request or on being prompted by us. And we find many of the offices closed and officers running away, even at times leaving the towns or cities where the offices are located, thinking that we're investigating them, and therefore maybe what saves them is to flee. But does that help? Because if it's a problem already reported and we are coming to check, hata ukitoroka, we also have responsibility, including breaking the doors and checking your desks. So let that not be part of your imagination for you. A very important institution in this country, once we had an examinations into their system, nearly disbanded the commission after reading the reports. So we do not expect also you to react negatively to what we are going to pick from you, because it's you who will give us the information and share with you. We will give you feedback and give you recommendations on how to go about them. So if we say it, NEMA has this particular problem, or the ministry has this, or the Kenya Forest Service has this particular issue, or the water tower has this and that, by way of our report, we do not expect you to fight back in a negative way, but pick the information and make use of it for the purposes of changing from the bad image or information shared into a positive picture. That is why we've been repeatedly saying, no, it's not an investigation. But even if it were, are you not supposed to provide adequate information and time for us to check into your systems? But I want to assure you, we are there, we are joining you, understand your system, and come up with a report which helps you improve on your status. Nothing more, nothing less. But if through our interrogation, through our interactions, you forward information that you think we should analyze further, we are happy at doing. And it's also important to tell you that sometimes such like exercises can contribute to a serious transformation, not only of your own.
An interesting conversation there that we shall be following, and like I said, Mel Miendo is there, where we have him speaking about the different issues in the Ministry of Forestry and Environment. And now let's cross over to where Nakumatt, then the UK mall was being brought down. And speaking right now is Atul Shah, the Managing Director of Nakumatt Holdings, who's just finished speaking. But we'll just look at some of the pictures of the demolished mall, and some things to point out is that the mall has been questioned many times in regards to where it sits and the issues around it. And this is an affected party because Nakumatt was one of the tenants of the mall. And so this is yet another hit for Nakumatt, which has already been struggling, coming down to only 7 stores to try and bring itself back up to being a formidable outlet. And we know some of the things that have come up in the course of the morning is that Vera Shah, the property manager of UK Centre, says that they will go to court to challenge the demolition of the centre. And aside from that, he says that they have all the approvals for the building and deny that it was not built on a river. He says it's a small stream that passes next to it and not a river. And aside from that, he says that as at last evening rather, they were confident that there will be no demolitions. And these demolitions then began at around 5 a.m. That's a beautiful aerial shot of the situation that is at the UK mall that is in Westlands in Nairobi. And that is, the effect of the work that has been done by the Nairobi County government, which is following through the mandate under the NEMA Act of ensuring that, you know, any buildings that are on riparian land are brought down. And this has even gotten the backing of the president. And now, one of the things that happens in such situations is that we have people's jobs being, you know, put at risk, or people losing their jobs and thrown into some sense of uncertainty. And some of the people here are not sure who's undertaking the job. It has been a back and forth. NEMA yesterday said it is not the one doing the demolitions, but this is being done by the Nairobi County government because some of these functions are devolved. And so this is under the NEMA Act, which is why many may think it's NEMA doing the demolitions, but it is being done by the county government of Nairobi. And this was even made clear by the county governor, that's Mike Sonko. And the president himself said that the county government should continue with this exercise. Aside from that, over 350 people have lost their jobs this morning, or are uncertain of what the future holds in regards to their jobs, because they relied on the businesses that were operating inside the UK mall. And now this also brings to the fore the fact that millions of shillings worth of property has been destroyed, and there is heavy police presence at the center. And even when you see images and footage from early in the morning before the break of dawn, there was some heavy presence of police there, which pretty much just to secure the whole procedure, because there may be some resistance rather. And aside from that, the river or stream that UK Center is allegedly built on, according to Leila Mohammed, who's on the ground, says it smells more like a sewer than a river, which, you know, is just shows also the pollution that has gone into that specific facility. And aside from that, just some background, the center was constructed in 1994, and the owners are questioning why it was singled out in the entire Westlands neighborhood. They say the only notice they saw was social media posts of Kenyans asking for the building to be brought down. And aside from that, stranded workers say they were not aware of the demolition, that the demolition would happen today, though some owners of stalls had begun removing their stuff from the building areas, or rather their wares and the different facilities and the different things that they have in their shops or stalls from the building yesterday. And they are silently calling for, some of them are actually saying that Oswald Center should also be brought down, as they claim it is also built on riparian land, which brings to the fore a question of, is there some sort of favorism, or is there some sort of bias when it comes to bringing down these buildings? But this has not been done. Not all the buildings that have been brought down in Nairobi have happened in a day. So keen eyes and our cameras are trained on the same in regards to where else is going to be demolished, and whether there'll be any what has often been called sacred cows when it comes to these demolitions in the past. And so we have people who are victims of circumstance. Over 350 people who are uncertain of their jobs, who just got jobs and began to work, but now where the premises of their work has now been demolished, and they are uncertain of the same, even as the business owners try and figure out what happens, what next for them. And we've seen Atul Shah, I believe we shall bring you that soundbite in not too long to listen into what he was saying, because he's a key player in this, in the sense that malls run largely on the goodwill of the anchor tenant, and Nakumatt has been the anchor tenant of the UK mall, of the UK mall for a long time. And so this has been, and the anchor tenant often is one that brings in a lot of the foot traffic, the footfall, as we may call it in the technical sense of it. But a lot of the clients would come on account of clients to the mall would come on account of the anchor tenant, and Nakumatt has been the anchor tenant. They are one of the main, businesses running there. And it has now been brought down, and it is it's quite a hit for them, because this is what they've only come down to seven stores across the country as they try to now rebuild. And now this is a significant hit on them, because this is one of the stores that they were hoping would be part of the foundation of building up the business as it is. And so that could be a significant cause for strain for Nakumatt as well. And so like had been saying, and like what has been said is that the property manager says that they're going to go to court. Like I said, just to reiterate, they're going to go to court to challenge the demolition of the center. And he says that they have all the approvals for the building and deny that it was built on a river. And this again brings to the fore what even President Uhuru Kenyatta himself brought out, saying that there are people who are in government and approved these buildings to be put up on this land, and which is pretty much people who approved impunity, who approved illegalities. And so these people, in the president's words, should be prosecuted. And so at the moment, what you're seeing is that the active demolition process has taken a break from what was the case earlier in the morning. So you can see the huge machinery there is not active. Early in the morning, that's when we even had a bit of a link there at the end of AM Live, just when Leila Mohammed and the cameraman Robert Gishira brought to us some of the images from the UK Centre where there was activity when it was being brought down. There was a time, there was a bit of a situation where part of the building which was being brought down collapsed, and it seems like it fell on the machinery, on the huge machinery there, but fortunately it seems that nobody was hurt. And so there's like we said, a lot of police presence, a lot of concern about who is next. And like you've seen a lot of social media posts saying right now in Kenya there's 3 things to be afraid of, or three identities to be afraid of. 1, Nurdin Haji, the DPP. 2, Mr. Kinoti, the DCI director. And 3, this green heavy machinery. You see any of them in your around you, it's a concern for you. And so the people in Westlands today had that, and this matter of riparian land is going to be playing host to the 3 feared institutions, so to speak, because the DPP yesterday, last evening, tweeted about the same, and I'm just going to read what the ODPP's office tweeted about the same in regards to riparian land, which is likely to be a response to what President Uhuru Kenyatta said. And after a lot of that, he says that he noted that from press reports that the proprietors of the said buildings and or structures have maintained the requisite approvals before the commencement of the construction of the said buildings were granted by relevant government agencies. Accordingly, in consultation with the CS Environment, that's Keriako Tobiko, he has directed, that's the DPP, has directed the Director of Criminal Investigations to immediately commence comprehensive investigations to establish the circumstances, the procedures, and the persons who irregularly and or illegally issued the approvals for the construction of any buildings and or structures on the riparian land, and submit a progress report together with a duplicate police file for perusal and further directions after every 21 days. And we shall be giving you more updates from UK and anywhere else where there shall be the demolitions in Nairobi or otherwise. But right now we've seen a lot of focus in Nairobi as the matter of riparian land and buildings of them continues to, to spread and become a more significant news element and a human concern, because the environment has been affected. And this is partly why when it rains significantly in Nairobi, we have floods in the capital. In 2018, in the capital city, we have floods when it rains. And so we shall be giving that information. But something else that's been affecting our society significantly is about gender-based violence. Now, to give the context, a woman from Makueni County is nursing head injuries after she was brutalized by her husband. 32-year-old Evelyn Mwende was beaten unconscious by her husband Daudi Nzomo, and she's receiving treatment at the Machakos Level 5 hospital. Let's listen to the story that Sharon Baranga did.
Kicks and blows from a man who professed to love her 18 years ago. This is a video showing Evelyn Mwende getting a beating from her husband Daudi Nzomo Manyenze. It is a video that has been doing rounds on Facebook that has elicited mixed reaction from its viewers. The reason behind the brutal assault on Mwende remains unclear.
Hali yake sio mzuri, hata statement hajaweza kujiandika. Ni ile tu verbal interrogation ya haraka ile preliminary, tunaita kwa Kiingereza preliminary, ili tuweze kujua mwelekeo gani tutachukua tukitafuta huyu mwalimu.
Mwende was rushed to Makueni Referral Hospital while unconscious, and she could not tell exactly what happened on the fateful day that led to the assault. Mwende has been transferred to Machakos Level 5 Hospital for further treatment.
We admitted the patient as is required for severe head injury cases. She had sustained a right eye swelling and reddening. She had also sustained a bruise at the sagittal region on the head, and blunt injuries to the face, most probably due to blows or kicks.
Police are already in search of Nzomo.
Masaa machache ama madakika machache iliyopita tumeweza kutrack ama kumtafuta, kujaribu kunasa penye yako kupitia mtandao yetu ya tracking device na namba yake ya simu, na anaonekana akiwa amefungulia simu katika market ama center ilijulikanayo Kangondi, katika eneo hilo tu ya Katoloni. Ningependa kuwauliza wananchi wa eneo hilo ambao wanaweza kumtambua huyu bwana Nzomo wawasiliane na sisi wana polisi kwa njia ya haraka.
In the video, Nzomo is heard threatening to slit his wife's throat. Those witnessing the ordeal are heard pleading with Nzomo to stop battering his wife, but by word of mouth. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Such disturbing scenes there. And Daudi Nzomo, that is the man who was caught on camera assaulting his wife, that's Winfred Mwende, and that was last week in Makueni. He pleaded guilty, and when he appeared before Makueni senior principal magistrate James Moneki a day after he was arrested, and the magistrate ordered that he be held in remand until 8th of August when his sentence was to be read. And we know that he was arrested on Thursday at Nguu Masumba Ward in Kibwezi West, Makueni County, and Mwende has been recuperating at our Nairobi hospital where she has received specialized treatment. And aside from that, we know that he was handed his sentence of 12 years in prison. In another case, a 28-year-old man has sought refuge at a shelter that harbors men who have suffered domestic violence, which is not always the most common thing. Now, Peter Ngoge is recuperating from injuries that he sustained after his wife allegedly hit him on the head with, guess what, a hammer.
His demeanor hides a secret that was made public after an attack that he says was as a result of a simple argument.
Saa chenye kilisababisha ni kumwambia kitu hakuna kitu anasikia. Namwambia kila kitu nikimwambia hataki kusikia.
Peter Ngoge has injuries on his head and face that he says is evidence of the cruelty he suffered at the hands of Ruth Wangoi, a woman who had once claimed to love him.
Saa mimi siku moja nikatoka kazi. Nikaenda tu nikalala. Nilipolala akanikuta na akachukua ile nyundo nilikuwa nafanya nayo kazi. Akanigonga kama mara sita hivi kwa kichwa. Sikuwa najisikia.
Ngugi says his wife kept swinging the tool and only stopped when he struggled to get to his feet and called his neighbors. He now wants the police at Miharate police station to find the woman and arrest her.
Ai sijui penye yako. Alienda kwa sijui kawa penye walimficha.
Hii si kitendo rahisi hivyo, sababu kama huyu jamaa angekufa, bwana Ngoge angekufa, sasa aingejulikana ni nini imemuua. Kwa hivyo wanawake wachache walio na tabia mbaya ambao wanaharibia wanawake wengine sifa wanafaa kuchukuliwa hatua za kinidhamu.
Charity Mwangi, NTV.
And there are many other stories like that. Unfortunately, these are the kind of stories we would hope would not be existent in our society, but there are very many more. We shall be giving you a few others, including one with some very unfortunate statistics coming from the county of Kilifi, and we shall bring you to that just in not too long. But I want to now pull in this conversation and invite our guest in studio. We have Wangeshi Wachira, the Executive Director of the Center for Rights Education Awareness, or CREW.
Yes, that's correct.
As well as Philip Otieno, Executive Director of Advocates for Social Change Kenya, that's ADSOC. Welcome.
Thank you.
What's your feeling when you see those kind of stories?
I must say that when I see these cases, it breaks my heart to see that in this modern day we can be talking about violence against both men and women, because I don't think it does exist. It should be existing at this time and age. But I must also say that I think the level of awareness for Kenyans has really gone up. I think when you see the video of Zomo, whereas we saw that there are people who are taking the video of this, but they quickly shared the video. But also we have seen the state really taking action within a very short period. I think this case has been determined with less than a month. And for me, I see that a very big progress, because it's sending a message that once we are ending the impunity around gender-based violence, and to see that the court actually within, Makueni court, within such a period, they have already handed over a judgment of 12 years. For me, I see a very big plus. I think we are going to a good direction, because it means the state agencies that are mandated to be able to do this work, whether it's from the Office of DCI, Office of the ODPP, they're actually taking action. But also the Kenyans are vigilant that as certain when a case does happen, that is going to be reported, and when we see action being taken, then we are happy that we are going to the right direction. But there is a flip side of it, because whereas we acknowledge that that case has taken such a short time, we also have so many other cases in other parts of the country where they have taken forever. And I can be able to give some of those statistics, because like in our office, we support women who go, who come and report cases, but they take forever in court. We have cases that are in court for more than 3 years. And to continue seeing the same perpetrator, I don't think it's a good environment.
Okay, and that's also, you know, just a question of, do we have sort of biased judgments in terms of, we don't have some inconsistencies in terms of when we see, like she said, you know, Nzomo was given his sentencing in a very short time. Yeah. Could it be just because he pleaded guilty, or do we see some cases where it also depends on who the perpetrator is?
I think, thank you so much for having me. What is happening, and what happened with the Nzomo case, is the public outcry when everybody else was shouting, and whatever he was doing was in the public limelight, and everybody else was saying this cannot happen in this present day and age, given the fact that as a country we have very, very good laws against sexual and gender-based violence. And I think this actually calls for people to come out and speak about, speak against gender-based violence more profoundly, because when we talk about it, then it goes to the powers that be, the people who sit in the benches and decides whether somebody needs to be sentenced or not. Because when we come up with laws, they are meant to act as deterrent measures to prevent these kinds of acts from happening, either to a man, a woman, or to a child. And therefore, when we see these cases being expedited, again, it sends a very clear message, like Wangeshi pointed out, that we need to put a stop to this. And in terms of biasness and inconsistencies with the law, I think the enforcement of the law really also calls for us as a people to know those laws that and that they exist, and what needs to be done for us to be able to actually call and demand for the rights of the people. Because most of the time you realize that as Kenyans we have very good laws, but how many of us know it? Perhaps it's only people in the civil society organization that are aware of the existence of these laws, and therefore the community members cannot really demand for these laws to be implemented. So I think for me, as a man, talking from a man's point of view, we see these kinds of acts escalating every now and then, because again it's an issue of power and control, somebody exercising their power over another. There's gender inequality. We are not equal as a country. We see men still hold key preferential treatment and male privilege, although men are also, we've seen that men can also be violated, but still the bigger percentage, the majority of these cases are actually targeting women and children. And the last one is actually disrespect for human rights, and we have to get to a point where you do not violate somebody just because they're a woman, but you first and foremost look at them as human beings, and therefore their rights must be respected in that accord.
Okay, and we've seen more cases ordinarily of women being the victims. And actually for you, a lot of the cases are women. One, the default thing could be that, first of all, not as many men get beaten by women. But is there was also the element of some kind of embarrassment. If my wife beat me, I don't know who I'll go talking to about it. And how can that, is there some sort of stigma that sits with it? How can that be remedied? Because there are men, like, you know, people say it like a joke, but it's true that the boy child is suffering.
I think for me, it's really to look at the magnitude when you compare the cases that are coming of those of men and women and boys and girls. And given that we had some experience doing this work, is that we have seen more cases directed to women and young girls. But that does not mean that we do not have cases of men and young boys who are being violated. So we do acknowledge that there are cases for both men and women and boys and girls, and therefore it's important that at this time then we must be able to bring both men and women together, bring boys and girls together, and be able to find out what are the root causes, what is causing this kind of violence, what must be able to do differently, so that if a man is violated, then he can be able to talk about it. If it's a woman who has been violated or a girl who has been violated, what is the support system that is in place? That nobody is going to say we're going either to discriminate them because they're either men or women, or nobody is going to say no, that didn't happen. But for us, I think when we see the state taking action, then it gives people hope that if it does happen, whether it's a woman or a man who has been violated, then there is an institution that they're going to do that. And our constitution is very clear, because we have institutions that have been mandated to do that. The Office of ODPP, the police play a very, very important role when it comes to this, from the investigation. By the time the matter is being brought to court, if there is no evidence, then who has, I mean, a lot of people will not have faith in judiciary, but, or even the police. But if a matter is properly investigated, the ODPP is able to take the matter within the shortest time, but also when it's brought in court, that is going to be determined in the shortest time, that these are the standards we need to keep. You saw, I think last year when Kofi Olomide came here, yes, and within a short time he had violated someone within at the airport, one of the entourage. And look at the kind of noise that came from Kenya, saying, this man, doesn't matter whether he has a show, or we have paid, or we have not paid, but he's not going to land in our country. And within a very short time, the CS was there saying, this man must go back. We saw the case of Nairobi Moi girls. Within a short time, we saw the CS coming into school and saying, we cannot allow this to be happening in our schools right now in our country. And we saw the DNA test being taken. We saw the police come in and really provide security to within the school. So if we see the state agencies that are mandated to be able to do this work, I think a lot of people will have more confidence and will come out and say, it is happening, but we must also be able to take action.
Yeah, just to pick up from what she's left, I think when it comes to men, remember we are living in a patriarchal society where it's about male supremacy, male privilege, male-centeredness. So if in the case that it is a man who has been battered or violated, it becomes it's more of a double stigma, because it's very difficult to come out in a society which believes that men are the superpowers, to come out and say, actually I've been battered. So, but remember, violence against anyone, be they men or women, is a crime that should not be justified, condoned, or even rationalized. So we should not even start thinking about, oh, where were you at what time, what happened, what kind of dress were you wearing, what did you do, and stuff like that. So I think as a country, we just need to allow ourselves to start holding perpetrators of violence accountable, rather than blaming the victims and survivors of such violence. Because if you see somebody has been violated and they don't want to come out, it's simply because the society, we are also going to violate them again by saying, oh, you deserved it, you did this, you did that. And that's wrong. That's why most of these cases are never reported. So even if it's a man, the only thing we need to do is to give them the support that they need. What we are saying is that we need survivor support, we need perpetrator accountability, the people who violate others must be held accountable, because most of the time, like Nzomo for instance, he's been sentenced to 12 years and he will be doing 10 years in jail and then 2 years outside. Yes. During that period of time, when he comes back, he will be like, oh, you are the one who made me to go to jail. Not thinking of his actions. What did he do to warrant him being sentenced to jail?
Is that to say that we do not have effective correctional facilities? Because ideally, jail is not just about punishment.
Yes.
It's also about, you know, restoring people to a place where they can be positive people in the society? Are we putting questions to the society?
Yeah,
to
exactly, Dan. Dan, that's very correct, because our correctional facilities are actually not even correctional facilities, if I may say, but they are very punitive, in the sense that once you get in there, you are beaten up, you are punished because of the offense that you did and all that. But what we need to do, because Sexual Offences Act, Section 35, is very clear about rehabilitation of perpetrators. But because remember, this person is going to come back to the society. So that reintegration process, we must make them first and foremost accountable for their acts, but also find ways of making sure that we correct them. So we need also to engage and work with perpetrators of violence, so that when they come out, because remember, if I am the perpetrator, when I come out, I have friends. So when they see that I've been sentenced, essentially what would happen is that they're saying, oh, so it's Wangeshi who made Phil to go in jail. So she is not at peace. So we must really make sure that perpetrators are held accountable. We give survivors the support that they need, the requisite support, and we also make sure that we have what is called bystander action. Because, for instance, what you saw in Nzomo's case, there were people who are standing there, and like Sharon rightly pointed, they were saying stop, but nobody could act, because I believe there were men there.
And there are actually people taking videos.
And people taking videos. And in terms of taking videos, we also encourage people to take videos of the perpetrators rather than the person being violated, more for purposes of accountability and to get this person.
But yes?
Sorry, Dan, just to wind up on this, is that we need to make sure that when we see something happening, a case, somebody being battered or being violated, we take action. Bystander action. We must be active bystanders, rather than saying, oh, me, I don't beat up my wife, so I'm okay. Remember, tomorrow it is going to come to you, especially if issues of rape and defilement. If you see somebody has been, a woman has been raped by someone, and you don't say, and you perhaps know even the perpetrator, and you don't talk about it, remember, tomorrow it's going to come to you. It's going to come to you. And we need to stop this act of thinking that if it is not me, then I don't have any issue about it.
And
all the time.
I hear you. And here the challenge comes. We are saying that it's good, we should take a video of the perpetrator so that we can actually identify them and know how to do them. But what's the balance between that? If, for instance, and you know, God forbid, that we have a fight here in studio, and Phil begins to beat Wangeshi. So should Dan be on his phone recording Phil, or should we be trying to restrain Phil? That's the concern here, because this shows some sense of, we're in such a culture of, you know, videos and photos. You have to be the one who has the exclusive footage or whatever it is. But what comes first, you showing or you shielding?
I think what will go first for me, it would be to shield. It's really to shield, because you can see this person has been put is in a very vulnerable place, and you don't know what is likely even to happen. This person can be hit and die. I mean, and we have seen people who died as a result of even domestic violence. So I think the first thing will come is really to shield. But what I also like about Kenyans, I think with the social media, is also giving us a tool then to be able to give this evidence, because we've had instances where we go to court and we are told there is no evidence. When we see this kind of documentation being done, then it provides that evidence in court. You can imagine the case of Zomo, if it had happened and then witnesses will come to court. Next week they will not show up to court because either they have been intimidated, there is corruption into it, and therefore the case is not able to go forth. So I think it's double-edged, that whereas we have the tools to be able to collect this data, I think we also have a bigger responsibility to shield such a person who is at a very vulnerable place, to ensure then they are not hurt and more damage is not done.
Yeah, and again, Dan, there was also another case just in this week, I think in this week, where a woman was also seen to be battering a man because of 200 shillings. And remember, the person who took that video, when he was asked, why didn't you stop it? He said, I tried stopping, but there were some young people who were there who were encouraging the woman to go on beating the woman. So they didn't want me to stop this. So the only alternative that I had was to take the video so that this could be taken. So I just want to affirm what Wangeshi is saying. We need to stop before it happens. When we talk about issues of violence, prevention is key.
Yes.
Response is secondary. So we need first and foremost to prevent, stop it from happening, let it not happen at all. But in the event that it becomes difficult for that to happen and you find yourself in situations where you can get that evidence, it's also important to get it.
All right, and you know, we've seen a number of stories, you know, being highlighted in the media, and like we as NTV, without blowing our own horn, but we will. We've been very deliberate about, ensuring that these kind of cases of injustice are exposed, okay? And we ran with the Nzomo story, and we've been seeing how to get these others. Now, does this exposing of the different situations, who does it encourage? One, does it encourage perpetrators to kumbe tuko wengi? You get? Or does it encourage the victims to speak out?
I think for me, first, the work that has been done by the media stations, I think is commendable, because previously these cases were not getting the airtime it does require. So when we see this kind of progress by stations taking up, I think is a big plus. For me, when these cases are reported, it has a very, very important or positive angle to it, because when they are highlighted, you're breaking the silence around violence against women, or you're breaking the silence around violence. And therefore, it means that if a case like that does happen, it means that there is action being taken. And you have you have followed up the case of Nzomo, meaning you didn't just pick the case and drop, showing the video and drop in there. You followed through. Was the matter taken up by the police? DCI, what is it you're doing? ODPP, what you're doing? Because you're also seeking accountability from the various institutions. It also sends a message that this thing, we're actually ending impunity, because anybody else who thinks that he can get away with this, then it's very clear that you can go to jail for 12 years or even more than 12 years. Therefore, it's sending a message that you cannot continue doing this and getting away with it, and really ending the impunity around issues of violence against women, or violence in general. I think that for me, the other thing that is also doing is that it's also encouraging Kenyans that if and when this does happen, actually my phone can actually be able to be used to collect the data that most for the time they keep saying there is no evidence, there is no evidence. So it is important to be able to shield, but also step up if you are able to have your phone, because this is community journalism. Actually just taking the video and saying we are not going to allow this, because when we know when we go to court, they will say there is no evidence. We have our evidence here. So the magistrate and the judge, you cannot be saying we have no evidence. The evidence is there, has gone out there, and the action around it, I think for me, is very, very powerful.
Okay. Yeah. And you have something to add?
No, just to say, you asked a question whether who does it give more leverage.
Yes, yeah,
I think the bit about leverage is that the fact that Wangeshi pointed that you followed all the way through to the time when Nzomo was sentenced. And remember, I said laws are meant to deter people from taking certain acts of criminal acts. So the fact that people can now see that Nzomo was sentenced to 12 years, it's a deterrent measure. So I think it's working more on the side of the survivor, that men especially, because initially our organization used to be called Men for Gender Equality now, because we target men in transforming society, because we know that men sustain, reproduce, and legitimize majority of social structures that discriminate and subordinate women in the society, including those structures that even tell other men not to be engaged in social justice initiatives that are very proactive and progressive in nature. So we must engage with men in discussions around stopping forms of violence. Most of the time you realize that like we said, majority of these cases are mainly targeting women and children especially, and therefore there's a discussion that we need to have with men, so that they don't look at women as just people from the periphery, because a lot of times when the definition of a woman to a man is very different. Yeah, a woman is somebody that, when they hear a woman, is somebody that is not related to them and so much. But if it is somebody they feel closely related with, they want to shield them. If you ask somebody, what will you do if you found that somebody beat your sister? The response will be,
or even your mother.
Yeah, or even your mother. I'll kill them.
Yeah.
That's the response. But what about if you beat another woman who is probably somebody's mother, somebody's sisters, and all that? Yeah, they'll be like, on that note, I think we can talk. So So what you're saying is that we must really make men to understand that the people we call women are human beings, and they have inherent dignity as given not only by the constitution or the laws of the land, but God-given. Yeah.
Some of our challenges, partly because, even as you join in, are some of them partly because of the cultures of some of the communities that are in Africa. You know, there are some who believe that if my wife makes a mistake, I will beat her. That's a sign of love. You know, to straighten her, that she will not make the mistake again. Are we still reeling off some of the effects of some of these things in some cases?
I think whereas we acknowledge there are such negative cultural practices, I think we have been able, we are making strides, and we're really moving to be able to work with both men and women. And for me, that's very, very important, because when you have cultural context that's saying, oh, we cannot take the girls to school because she's going to be married off, or we're going to take the boys to school and then keep our girls and get married. I mean, those are cultural practices that are very, very retrogressive. They are happening, but I think we are coming a long way. And that's why, for example, tomorrow we have a big event along Uhuru Gardens, and this is a conversation with both men and women. We want to have a conversation with both men and women, boys and girls, so that we can be able to see how do we live these cultural practices that keep taking away the half of our population. Because how can a country progress in terms of development when you have a whole population being left behind? So it's important that then those conversations will only happen not only by putting women at one side and putting men on another side, putting girls on one side and boys on the other side. We must be able to come together and be able to have this conversation in a way that we are honest and say, where is it ailing us? Where are we ailing? When we say that, for example, violence against women is acceptable. In this modern day, can we really be saying that is acceptable? When we see that our women, for example, when it comes to leadership position, we are not there. Why? Can we really be saying our country is going to progress when you say half of the population is not contributing to it in terms of their decision making, in terms of their contribution? If the women of Kenya, for example, withdrew the amount of money they contribute to our taxpayers, we could just go and say 52% of our contribution to our taxes, we are going to withhold it till our demands are met. Can our country be able to progress? But
you know, we've heard of those kind of claims about people talking about like tax boycotts. The practicality is very difficult.
I think is a conversation. For me, is the starting point of the conversation, because if we are saying that we need both men and women to contribute to the tax, it also means that both men and women, girls and boys, must be able to benefit from what they are contributing, and therefore be able to get to a point that say, when we get into the leadership position, when we have a president and a deputy president, is it possible to have a woman who is a president and have a man who is a deputy president? And the same all the way to the counties, where we have at least we have made progress. Now we have 3 governors. Can we get into all the other 47 counties and have a deputy man and woman? Yeah.
And I'll just cut short the conversation for a bit, because we want to cross over to the county of Mombasa, where the Law Society of Kenya is having its annual conference for 2018, which the CJ, the Chief Justice, opened yesterday. But today we had the Attorney General speaking earlier on, and now we have the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives, that's Peter Munya, speaking. Let's listen in and hear what he has to say in regards to the law and trade.
No, or regional integration is. Regional integration, simply defined, is when governments come together to cooperate in certain matters. You say they are integrating, and they decide, instead of doing our own things, we are sovereign governments, we are sovereign states, and we have powers to do our own things without reference to anybody else. But life is not as easy as that. You require cooperation across boundaries. And boundaries are not as neat as they are also done in the maps. So certain cooperations across the boundaries for socio-political advancement is usually required. So when governments come together, states come together to do that cooperation, is when we say they are integrating. And again, in integration, there are different levels. Some countries integrate until they even dismantle one another and create bigger units. That is called sometimes federations, confederations, countries, states coming together that were independent before, they become a confederation. sometimes they can come together and form a state and deeper integration. So that is what we call regional integration, and there are many examples and many experiments that have been done over the years, some successful, some not very successful, some long-lasting, some not. For example, in our region, we have our East African community that died, that started and died, and then revived again, and we are going on with it, and we have many other regional integration initiatives, like the southern one, SANDAC. We have the COMESA that covers our region, and we have ECOWAS in West Africa that is more concerned with peacekeeping and political more than economic, even though they have also been now going into economic integration. So looking at, therefore, integration and decentralization, you see clearly there will be conflict. Because when you are trying to take power down, and then you are trying to integrate regionally, there is bound to be conflict in terms of mandates, in terms of law, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, looking at East African community, for example, again, I don't want to go into the history and processes and all that, but I want to say that perhaps looking at East African community now, you would say in the region, East African community is one of the most advanced integration projects, looking at the area of coverage, sectors that are covered, and the depth of what we are cooperating in East Africa. You see it's the most advanced in relation to those other regional integration projects in our region in Africa. Of course, in the world, you would say EU is the most advanced, the most integrated region in the world. As of now, if we were to audit them. Going into the East African Community Treaty that creates the East African Community, you will see there is a roadmap on how we integrate, where we start, and where ultimately we want to go. And there are identified pillars of integration that we are supposed to adopt as we go along. And the first pillar in the integration of East African communities, we started with the customs union, then the common market, the monetary union, and finally, a political federation. So the treaty identifies that roadmap and clearly gives particular milestones when you are integrating, you reach here, you are supposed to do this, until the ultimate destination, which is a political federation. So within the treaty, there is the widening of integration. Widening meaning that bringing people to, different countries together is widening. There is also widening in terms of the subject matter, the areas that you are integrating in, the areas you are cooperating in. But there is also the deepening, coming closer and closer until you reach the federation, you become one country. That is the deepening. As you cooperate in those areas, you reduce domestic government involvement, you go to the supranational level. You are widening, and at the same time you are deepening towards the destination, that is the political federation. Customs union. What is a customs union? Countries trade with one another, and you import goods, and there are various tariffs that you pay, depending on the goods and depending on what you have settled on. So different goods will pay different things. Different countries will charge different things. So when you are paying customs, If you want to integrate and to have a common market, you require to harmonize your customs. So that if you are importing sugar in Kenya, into Kenya, and you are importing sugar also into Tanzania, the importer into Kenya pays the same tariff he would pay when he is importing into Kenya. So that is what we are calling a customs union. When you harmonize those external tariffs for goods coming into the country, it's called now you are in a customs union. So that is the first stage. You have harmonized external tariffs. Then you have a customs union. And in the process, you create what is called a single customs territory. Meaning, once goods come in, they pay, you ring-fence the whole union with similar tariffs. Similar tariff bands you agree on. For sugar, we will be charging this. For tea, we will charge this. For clothes from India, we will charge this. For whatever, we will charge. So a common charges that you harmonize those ones. Then, the next stage, and this is where we are now on our customs. Our customs union has been growing, and we are in a stage where now you create a single customs territory, meaning that even the collection points, in terms of if goods are coming into Kenya through Mombasa, they will go to Tanzania, they also go to Kenya. You have officers from all the countries collecting goods from there. In fact, in a more advanced system, you will have one institution collecting on behalf of the country so that it doesn't matter where those goods enter through. If they enter through Mombasa, the Kenyan territory would collect the tariffs for Tanzania and for the other countries, for goods destined for Tanzania and destined for Burundi. That is what we are calling now a single customs territory. Create one authority that runs it, or if it's not one authority like we are now, it's not one authority, but you have officers from, customs officers from all those countries at one point collecting goods on behalf of all those countries. So you harmonize the management of customs. So you have now a single customs territory. So in Kenya right now, our customs union has reached that stage where we have harmonized and we have a system of collecting at any entry point. Before, if you were to import goods, you could not import goods destined for Tanzania, for example, through Kenya. You would require them to, they would require now, when they reach the border to Tanzania, they have to be checked again because you have not harmonized on how to collect them from the port of entry. That is what we have been harmonizing through that single customs territory that we are creating. We are also currently reviewing the law. Customs management law is already being reviewed to improve on it because of the practice that has been there and deal with the bottlenecks that may have brought some challenges. The other stage we are in is we are reviewing the customs common external tariffs. We are reviewing them right now because we have been practicing them there and they have been giving us challenges. We have been having 3 bards, for example, of customs. Some goods, we charge them at 25. The others that are charged 0. The others are intermediate goods that are charged 15. That customs bard has not been working. We are reviewing them, looking at the complexity and diversity of the goods coming. We are in the process of reviewing that to improve on it, make it better. So that is what is a customs territory, and a customs union is one of the pillars of integration. The other key pillar of integration, of course, is the common market. The common market is much wider.
And we shall be monitoring what's happening in Diani as we have the CS there at the LSK annual conference for this year, and we shall be giving you those details in full. And we shall also be following up what's been happening at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Mel Mendo will be coming up just to give us some information on what was being said there, which is it was the launch of the corruption risk assessment into systems, policies, procedures and practices at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And so we shall be getting a brief from El Mino. But for now, we take a short break on NTV Today. We shall be back after this. Welcome back to NTV Today, where we're following up all that you need to know right now and shall be giving you briefs on different things happening as we have the aftermath of the morning demolitions of the UK Centre in Nairobi's Westlands and the questions around that and the comments as well around that, as well as bring you up to speed with what has been happening at the Kenyatta International Convention Centre, where we have the EACC having launched a new program, a new audit process at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and Mel Meno shall be joining us in just a bit to let us know what exactly has been said there. And you know, the EACC CEO insisted that this was not a probe, you know, trying to look for dirt, so to speak. It was maybe pretty much just to have the systems audited, but you know, anything to do with audit pretty much brings forward some dirt, if there is any, and we wait to see what comes out of that. And aside from that, we shall be having our continued conversation here about sexual and gender-based violence. And one of the videos we had spoken about is this one, where we had the lady who was, you know, beating the gentleman, and this was, you know, and the gentleman himself was inebriated, visibly so. And we've seen many cases where we find the woman is the one who is the victim. When the man is the victim, at a point it becomes a point of ridicule for many people. And like we're saying, there's some sort of, you know, stigma around that. And we must say this lady is quite, she's not the easiest to deal with in terms of she was pretty strong and knew her fighting game. pretty much. And so in this kind of a situation, the gentleman was inebriated either way. This is when we are saying that the people taking the video. This is the one you are saying who said that he was told that the people were holding him from
taking the
from stopping
the violence.
Yes,
the violence. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's the end of the video. That's why it went blank. But nonetheless, how did we get here? Is it like we talked about partly the culture that we usually have, and you're going to give a comment on culture. Some cultures have it that if my wife goes off, or if not even my wife, even if a certain lady goes off track, I'm going to punish her. What then?
Yeah, let me start by saying and quoting the Constitution, especially Article 27, Clause 3. It says that women and men have equal rights and have their and should be treated equally, be it in political spheres, economic and social spheres. So we start from there. But then also we have the Sexual Offences Act, Article 20, Section 29, that says if you violate somebody based on your culture or even religion, the minimum sentence is 10 years. So what does that say? It essentially says that the law is above your culture, the law is above your religion, and therefore people must start knowing that if you are not going to respect somebody just because they're human beings, then know that there's a law which is also above all of us, and therefore we need to respect the law. Just respect them because of the law. And the shortest, one of the shortest article again in the Constitution, Article 28, talks of every person has inherent dignity and to have that dignity respected and protected. So it doesn't matter whether they are this is a woman or a man, they must be respected, and we just need to do that. So as a country we need to really move, because culture is a way of life, and we need to come up with new norms. Because a lot of times when we see violence, it's like I said, it's about power and control, and therefore somebody is trying to exercise their power over the other person, and that must stop. So we must engage in discussions and conversations around how do we stop violence from happening, either to a woman, to a man, or even to a child, because nobody deserves to be violated. No one at all. And in the event that it happens and somebody has been violated, then what do we do as a people, as a community, to make sure that the person who has violated the other is held accountable? Because whenever if there's no accountability, these issues will continue. So if we make people to pay for their acts, the negative acts that they commit, then essentially we are going to move from that point of violation to the point of where we respect other people's rights. And you asked a question, how did this start? I normally, in training sessions, I normally say we are in a situation where it's like a society, we are deformed. And with deformation, we need information. Information is going to bring transformation, and with transformation we are going to get reformation, meaning we are going to go back to where we ought to be. So we need to impart knowledge and skills, because knowledge and skills gives people the ability to take action. If people don't know, then essentially it's as good as they are not there. They do not exist. So we must grow, because if we don't grow, we are as good as dead.
Okay, and
I think just to add to the video, the video that you just shared, I think for me, violence, whether both men and women, it shouldn't be existing in our modern day. That's the basic. But also is that if there is conflict, because conflict will arise as human beings, are there alternative ways to be able to resolve this? For example, the video we just seen, would there be other mechanism that, for example, if the payment that had not been made for 200 shillings, or was there another way to be able to obtain that amount of money? For example, if that matter had been taken to the police station, would the police then would have taken action so that then the person who is offended is not feeling the best I can be able to get back is instant justice? When they go to the police, are they likely to be told enda mwelewane?
Okay.
What enda mwelewane? I mean, by the time I'm coming at Tujaelewana, and therefore you are expecting that office then to take action. If they don't take action, then a lot of people will say instant justice, so that then I feel I've gotten back what I needed, and in that case she hasn't even gotten her the 200 shillings. And for me, this is not just about the woman who is beaten. The same happens to women who've been violated. When I go to the police station the police officer will ask me, you've been violated by your husband, ulifanya nini? ulimpikia chakula. I mean, some more ridiculous question. By the time I'm coming to the police station, it's because I'm looking for an alternative way to resolve this matter.
Yes.
And therefore, they have an accountability that when that matter is brought in there, action is going to be taken. If we see those institutions, and we pay our taxes so that we can be able to have those institutions work, I guess we'll have a shift of norms and how we do business.
Okay, we'll come back into that, and just looking at how people perceive alternative dispute resolution and their faith in the systems. We'll come into that, and we actually have a very interesting thing that the director of the DCI himself confessed about the same. But before that, you know that, like we said earlier on, the EACC is having, was launching the corruption risk assessment into systems, policies, procedures and practices in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. That's at the KICC, where Mel Mendo is and joins us now live to give us an update of what exactly happened and just a brief on the same. And Mel, we had Halake Wako saying that this was not an investigation and just an assessment, because ordinarily we see EACCs in your offices and you get worried about the same. What was the context of this, Mel?
Dan, what you've said is very true. The CEO of EACC, Halake Wako, has emphasized that this will not be an investigative process, but rather an assessment exercise. And that word is also to the officers who will be conducting the same assessment exercise and to those who will be in the Ministry of Environment. He has asked them not to be anxious or apprehensive, but actually be able to give all the documents that are needed for this assessment exercise to be conducted. Now, before, about a few minutes ago, there were the commissioners from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, headed by the CEO, Halake Wako, and also the Ministry of Environment. We saw the Principal Secretary was here, Susan Mochache, and the Cabinet Secretary was not able to come. Keriako Tobiko sent his apologies, but he was represented by the Chief Administrative Secretary, Mohammed Elmi. Now, the launch is with regards to this assessment. The EACC say that the Ministry of Environment are the ones who actually requested for the assessment to be done, and so they have welcomed those exercises to be done in various sectors in the Ministry of Environment. Some of the reports that the Commission had received was with regards to fraudulent acquisition, bribery, among other issues, and so that is why the Commission took the initiative to begin this examination. Now, it is going to take about 4 months, so we expect the report to be done by December 2018. After that report, then there will be recommendations that will be given to the Ministry of Environment. The EACC has a 6-team member that will be conducting this assessment exercise throughout the various sectors in the Ministry of Environment, and with a look at who the people are in terms of the 6-team member, they have made sure that they have given a lot of emphasis on accounting, record taking, on economics, on finance, as these are some of the issues that were brought to the EACC with regards to the Ministry of Environment. And so they were here, and together they have launched that examination exercise. Now, Halake Wako had also mentioned that the similar exercise has been conducted in about 20 counties so far, and it will still be conducted in all the counties across the country. Now, the Ministry of Environment is about the 3rd or 4th ministry that the assessment exercise will be conducted on. In March, we saw the Ministry of Lands, where the assessment exercise was conducted, Interior Ministry, and so the CEO of EACC says that other ministries will also go through a similar assessment exercise. They're looking at all the loopholes, all the weaknesses that may be in these offices with regards to misusing public funds. And we've seen that corruption is a case that we see about each and every day here in our country, and so the EACC is really taking initiative on that. Now, on Monday, which is I think the 13th, yes, the 13th, next Monday is when the review will begin, the examination exercise in the Ministry of Environment. So after that, then we wait for about 4 months, and then we will get that report. Dan.
Thanks, Mel. And just before we come back to our conversation in studio, there was some mention of NEMA, and you know NEMA is under this ministry, and we know they are currently undergoing some fire in regards to the demolitions. And was anything about the demolitions of land, repair and of houses or buildings rather on repair and land mentioned?
Actually, the CA of EACC has been very, very stern on making sure that he speaks only about the Ministry of Environment. Yes, we did ask him as journalists about issues that are ongoing in the country, but he was very stern and insisted that today he will only talk about the Ministry of Environment launching this examination exercise. So to answer your question, Dan, he has not mentioned anything on that regard.
Much Mel Mendo coming to us from the Kenyatta International Convention Center, giving us an update of what was happening at the forum where EACC was having the launch of an assessment program at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and shall be giving us that story in further detail as we go along the bulletins and the day. Now, coming back to our conversation here, and Wangeshi had mentioned about people going, by the time we've come to a point of conflict, has gotten physical. It means we have not gotten to a point you can see eye to eye, and that's why we choose to go the way of, go to the police, for instance. But is this also sort of a statement of the weak belief or the wanting belief or confidence in our institutions, for instance, the police and the likes? Because there are cases where you and I will disagree, and we'll get to a point we'll agree on whatever grounds without getting violent. Is it that these people, one, just have maybe anger issues, or could it be also that there's also the element of, I don't trust the police, I don't trust that if I go to the police they're actually going to treat this case with the seriousness it deserves?
I think to start on, we must acknowledge that our Katiba has allowed, or it is very, very enshrined on the alternative dispute mechanism. And I must say that I think at the moment is a process that's going on whereby there is even a task force that is identifying how issues being dealt with in those alternative dispute mechanism. And that work that I think will finally lead to a policy framework. But also to be able to acknowledge that what are the things we are going to take to the alternative dispute resolution mechanism? Is human rights violation, for example, when a man kills his wife or a child is violated, are those going to be taken to those places? And it does happen, because if you go to some part of our country, you'll find that, for example, if a girl is defiled, the community will sit down and agree, we'll have this number of goats. How many? 20. And the goats are not even going to benefit the girl herself. They're going to benefit a larger community within the patriarchal setup. So she's not going to benefit from the goat eating. But for us, I think the question you're asking, the trust in our institution, I think that's where the rain is really beating us. Because, for example, if today we have disagreed and I go to the police and quickly then they make this, they don't take up my record, the case is not properly investigated. When it's taken to court again, it takes 5 years or it takes 3 years. Sometimes even to walk to that court is such a long distance. I have to leave everything else that I'm doing in that day to be able to court. I think we need that accessibility to be closer to us, but also the turnaround time. We commend the Zomo case within less than a month. I mean, I think it has taken less than a month from the date it was recorded from the time the determination will be done. I think that's where we should be going. That's the first train where we should be taking that. When my matter has an issue, I'm able to go to court, and within a very short time I'm able to get justice. That is good. But also we acknowledge that those alternative disputes that are not violating human rights should be supported, so that then the number of cases that are going to court are lesser, and all those other issues that are disputed then can be resolved at that level.
All right. And we have cases where we see what may be termed feminists coming up and fighting for the rights of women, for instance. But sometimes it almost looks like beating down the men, And I mean, let me first take it from the man. Okay. I see you are ready for that one. Clearly, it's a question you've been thrown at.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. How do we strike that balance? Because given there's the need to ensure that we've got equality. Okay. In terms of because everyone is is allowed to get their rights.
Okay, I think feminism as it is has been misconstrued to mean fighting for the rights of women. Feminism is a social movement about fighting for the rights of everybody else. And the fact that women are at the forefront of fighting for their rights is because of the historical injustices that have been meted on women over a long period of time. And if you look at our constitution again, I'm going back to Article 27, Article 27, sub-Article 6. It talks of issues of what the state will do to institute mechanisms for ensuring historical injustices are addressed by way of affirmative action and all that. And remember, again, affirmative action is always about temporary legislative, administrative measures that are put in place to address historical injustices. And in this case, even a man can be a feminist, and I'm a feminist, personally, because I believe...
You can see who else is a feminist.
Because I believe in gender equality, and I believe for people to be given their spaces where they can thrive to realize their full potential in life without really being discriminated against. Because, and it is the question you're asking about whether it is... it's about women, so to speak. It's because of the things that have been happening to women over a long period of time that also must take sustained efforts for us to be able to come to a point of equality. And equality, people also mistake equality and sameness. We can never be in a trillion years be the same, but we can be equal because kwa Kiswahili tunasema tunaweza kuwa na usawa, sio sawa. Yeah? Kuna kuwa na usawa. Meaning we can be treated similarly. Similarity in treatment. So if I see Wangeshi, I don't see a woman. I see first and foremost a human being. And I think these are the discussions that we need to have with men so that they understand that even when we talk about violation and you want to violate a woman, it doesn't affect the woman alone. It affects the whole society. Look at Nzomo's case. Now he's going to serve sentence in jail. Where are the children? Perhaps he was the breadwinner. What happens to the children? What happens even to the wife that is now, okay, fine, he beat the wife and now he's been sentenced. What is going to happen to that woman? How about the kind of work that he was engaged in? Assuming that he was a farmer and we all depended on his farm produce, what is going to happen to that? So when you violate somebody else, it just doesn't affect that one person. Neither does it only affect you, the perpetrator, but it affects us all as the society. If I am a doctor and I beat my wife and today I'm sentenced to jail and probably, for instance, I'm the only neurologist in Kenya, what happens to the country? So it affects so many people. And therefore we must get to a point of convergence where we agree and say as a nation that violence is a crime that should not be condoned, tolerated, justified or rationalized in its every nature.
I think just
as you jump in, because I want to know something, because see, you cannot be stopped at this point.
and I think it would be good.
I just want to point out, just even by definition,
yeah,
could maybe the name be the problem, so to speak, in the sense that feminism already it's about the feminine aspect. You know, you get the feminine aspect. When you look at, I've just Googled some definitions. It says feminism is a range of political movements, ideologies, and social movements that share a common goal to define, establish, and achieve political, economic, personal, and social equality of sexes. Okay?
Yes. And it says sexes. Very important, because I think the perception has been feminism is about women. Yeah. Feminism is not about women.
And
it's about,
because the word feminine has a connotation that it's about women.
I think it's a whole perception of understand and only doing a blind that it comes from female. It's people who are really conscious, they are aware that there is a population that has been left behind. And therefore, very important, we must be able to bring that population to where it is. Look, for example, a policy, for example, we are going to have sanitary towels for girls to be able to get in school, like, because if they are spending 5 days out of school, it will mean that they will never be able to compete the same way with the boys. Because if you calculate 5 days in a year, how many days are those? 12 times 5. 60 days. They miss how many? 2 months. Will they be able to compete? So when that is put for girls to be able to get a same environment so that they can be able to compete as boys. So someone is actually doing a policy work to ensure that the girls are able to compete. If it's about maternal health, women shouldn't be giving birth at home because either they are experiencing childbirth and they lose their babies or stillbirth. So someone decides we are going to put more resources so that our women, as they give birth, they are not going to get complication. We got to get to our constitution. Women have been left in decision making, 52%. then the Constitution says, let's have an affirmative action so that the population that has been left behind, because like Kenya is way behind every other country in the region, so that we get a 30%. That is what feminism, it's about conscious decision being made so that a population that has been left behind, it's at that level. So it's not about women taking away from men. What is it we are taking away?
But we must admit there are some who have abused the privilege that is there, and it becomes about bashing men as opposed to seeking the equality. I think it's really for people really to be able to have a deeper understanding and really be able to understand what are the issues that women are talking about. They want to be at a place whereby they're able to say, in terms of decision making, we want the faces of the women. We don't want, I mean, another population making decision on our behalf. We want to be part of the decision making, and therefore have a deeper understanding what is feminism and what is not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I just we have many men who are actually feminists. So it's not about women. We have very strong supporters. Like the work that we do, half of our staff members, for example, are men. When I go to the decision making of the organization, again, another half population. And we have seen people like Phil really coming out and saying, we cannot be able to be allowing this. So Phil, when I see Phil and he's really advocating for this, I say he is aware and he's conscious about it. Yes, and I agree. Yeah. And my point was that the reality is we do have some people who come in the name of feminism. Feminists, right? But they are not so much, I think they've gone to an extreme that may not be the healthiest, because it becomes about putting down others. We have seen those. Wangeshi, not in agreement, but they are there. I'm not in agreement. We have seen people who instead of trying to advocate for equality, it becomes a supremacy battle. That we are better than you. Are you saying there's nothing like that? I guess the approach is different. People will have, for example, when it comes to demanding what is there, the approach will be different, and we cannot all be. Even among the women, we are all not different. There are people who sit and have a dialogue. Others will push more and say, for me, this needs to be done with a lot of urgency, because the women cannot continue experiencing the same obstacle. For example, my grandmother experienced, my mother experienced, and I'm in another generation that's still experiencing. So there is also, the approach is different. The urgency to just be able to say, this work must be done so that we can also be able to move and do other things. Yeah. Okay, as we further get the context of all this conversation, let's there's a story we have that, that more than 3,000 cases of gender-based violence have been reported in Kilifi County for the last 1 year. Now, according to Haki Africa organization, Deputy Executive Salma Hamed, many abused women fail to report because they lack money to fill P3 forms. Kilifi County has recorded a high number of such incidences, with cases of at least 40 women and underage girls being raped in the last 3 months. Hamed called upon the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs to address the challenges facing women, claiming that a high number of cases are swept under the carpet.
Kuna kesi zopungua 3,000 katika kipindi cha June 2017 to June 2018 zikiweza kuripotiwa katika department ya county government na mtu ambaye kwamba anasimamia masuala ya watoto, za kesi za watoto ambao kwamba wanadhulumiwa. Vile vile pia kuna kesi zopungua 40 katika miezi mitatu zimeweza kuandikwa chini ama ziweza kuripotiwa za wanawake ambao kwamba wameweza kulawitiwa na watoto wadogo kuweza kunajisiwa.
A very sad set of affairs.
Yes, Kilifi has been on the public domain really around this matter, and for me it breaks my heart, because when I look at who is being violated, most of them are school-going girls. We also have women. I think from what you just highlighted, 3,000 cases. That's huge for a county, and I think there is a big opportunity for the even the governor, Honorable Kingi, to take action around this matter. The county is receiving resources from the national budget. As an organization, we're actually working in Kilifi. We have proposed a policy at that county so that the county can be able to deal with this matter. Because when we have this, we have both men and women living in Kilifi, we cannot continue saying this is a function of the national government. The county must also take action. If it comes to reporting a case, for example, to fill the P3 form, it costs. I have seen cases whereby people are saying it costs 1,000 for the P3 form. In this modern day, that should not be happening.
And according to the story that we've done and what has been said there, according to what is being alleged in Kilifi, is that the ladies, the affected people, women especially, lack 5,000 shillings to fill the P3 form.
P3 form, first and foremost, is free. It's free. Nobody should be asking you for 5,000 Kenya shillings to fill a P3 form. But you know why? Why it would cost that? Because if I'm moving from one to the farthest from the county, I need to travel. I need to get to a health facility for my form to be filled. I need to get to the police station for my P3 form to be filled. I need to show up in court, yeah, for my matter to be heard. So that would really be able to be the cost implication. But I think there is more that need to be done, even as we respond to the prevention. And I think that's where a lot of investment should go. And the county of Kilifi, I think, has a big obligation to ensure that the prevention, that's where we work. But if it does happen, what is the response mechanism? Because if it's going to cost 5,000, I mean, I have children at home. Will I be asking myself, do I take up this case or do I first feed my children at that point? I think if a woman, even at a household level, then that's, if I'm having a conversation about going to court and really paying 5,000 or getting that access to justice, I think you can guess my first priority to either to take care of my children and really just be able to support at that point. But I think the county has a bigger responsibility, and the national government actually should just, I mean, just for the time being, just be in Kilifi and ensure this matter is sorted out, because the women and the girls of Kilifi cannot continue being on the headline, just talking about cases day in and day out. And I think they have an opportunity, a window of opportunity to change that narrative.
Yeah, and please, we cannot overemphasize the fact that P3s should be issued for free.
Yeah.
Please, that's something that people need to know. And this is where, I remember when we started this conversation, I talked about people not knowing their rights. Yeah, and therefore, what Wangeshi is saying about the county government taking up the initiative should also go a long way. They should also go a long way in trying to create awareness on some of these things. Because if people don't know, then they're bound to be abused in that context. And most of the time, civil society organizations like ourselves, what we do is actually the work of the government. We only complement what the government should be doing, because those are things that they should be doing, the national government, the county government, and then we come in as partners in these processes. And we normally say that if we want to bring about change, then we must engage in what I normally call the 4 Ps. One, we must be partners. We must partner in this field to be able to help people to understand the things that are happening around them and how to engage and counter those issues, because addressing social issues can only be done by the people who feel it. Yeah, those people who are in Kilifi, they're the ones who know, like they are aware, they know the perpetrators.
Yep.
And sometimes these perpetrators are shielded. There are people who they know, this is my brother, so and so is the one who is doing this. And therefore, it can only be done by them. When Wangeshi go to Kilifi from Nairobi to go and run an activity there, she does so because it's a concern that the organization has seen, and there's a need and there's a gap that needs to be filled. But over and above everything else, communities must be empowered to be able to take their own initiative in ensuring that we prevent violence. Then the next thing that we need to do, we must engage in these processes, like talking about these things. When we talk about the budgeting at the county level, the county integrated development plans, how much is allocated to address issues of SGBV within any county? So members of the public need to be engaged in those,
Yep.
Those discussions, also to be able to say we need this as part of the system that we have. We don't have shelters. No government shelter in the country.
And we saw that Jessica Mbalu had actually brought to the House a motion to have the government required rather to put up the post-trauma centers.
Yes. I think that would be very important. Yes. For example, I would talk about Kilifi because I've had some experience. So Kilifi previously they didn't have someone who is really focusing on issues of gender. But I'm happy because within this, from the previous election, but now they have a CC gender, her work is really to focus. I think to a large extent is that issues of SGBV have also been integrated in the county integrated plan. So I think they have actually realized that there are issues and they need to deal with them. That's a big plus. I think the other thing we need to see is then the implementation. If the county is getting so many billions from the national government, how is it prioritized? Can issues of ending gender-based violence be on the first priority by the government of Honorable Kingi, so that then that becomes something else? Because if our girls are going to get pregnant at that age or likely to get pregnant at that, what does it mean in terms of their potential? How many are even going to go back to school? I mean, when you look at the numbers that they're talking about, 3,000, it will mean that every other corner there is someone being violated. Who is violating them?
And those are just
cases. We have cases. The border, and those are only reported cases. One of the perpetrators.
Say that most people don't usually
report. That's very true. In fact, in our team that is in Kilifi, every other time they're having a community dialogue, at the end, there are like 2 or 3 people who come and say, I have this case, I know the perpetrator, what do we do about it?
Because we do 3,000 cases, that means at least 8 people every day.
Can you imagine? And those are just reported.
So those are only reported. Mark, those are only reported cases.
And that's a very small percentage.
I'm looking at an excerpt of the Hansard from Wednesday, August 1st, 2018. And this is based on what I was saying, Jessica Mbalu, the MP. And one of the points is that there's a lot of issues, a lot of laws acts being mentioned, and there's high rate of sexual and gender-based violence crimes with an equal or higher number of survivors all over the country. This House urges the national government to set aside funds to facilitate the construction of post-trauma care facilities and ensure existing ones are rehabilitated and equipped to offer temporary stay for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence across the country.
I think that's a fact, and I would say, like she said, this country is not short of laws. The Laws Sexual Offences Act was passed, we have the Marriage Act, we have the Matrimonial, we have the Protection Against Domestic Violence, we have FGM Act. This country is not short of laws. What needs to happen? The laws need to get where the people are. Resources, money need to get to where the issues are, because if the county, for example, Kilifi, and so many other counties, Kilifi just at the moment at the limelight, but there are also other counties that are suffering the same. So if the resources...
Are we saying Kilifi is the worst off or just the worst reported?
I mean, what you have seen here, for example, when it comes to teenage pregnancy, Narok is the lead at 40%. The country, I think, is at about 18%, but Narok is at 40%, meaning there are many girls who are getting pregnant at the teenage level. So Kilifi at the moment, these are reported. The counties don't have data. That's the other big challenge. If you go to the counties and ask them, at a click of a button, are they able to show how many cases were reported within the courts, how many cases came to the police, how many cases came to the chiefs, how many cases that came to the health facilities? That data is not available. And I think, again, that's a big opportunity for the county to say, we're going to put in an infrastructure. We are going to have a coordinated way to be able to talk to each other. Bring judiciary, bring the police, bring even the teachers, because the teachers are also able to identify who is being violated. Even some of the perpetrators are also being teachers. The border. When a boda is violating a girl, what is the accountability within the boda circle or boda network within there? What is it that they are doing? Are they just going to keep quiet? If the girls are being violated going to school, who is violating them? It's not people who are coming from far. There is a component of the tourists who landed there, but I think the biggest perpetrator in Kilifi is the locals, and they must take action.
Yeah. And this also goes again to what he pointed out about the video we were watching here, that there are people around who shield the people who are doing, the perpetrators. They shield them in one way or another, you know. And the concern that the counties lack that data is a bit telling of the seriousness that it's been given. And also, when we think about some of these cases where you have the sexual-based violence, it's not always someone who's foreign.
Yeah. In fact, the studies have been done over and over. It's about a brother, it's about a cousin, it's about a dad, it's about a teacher, it's about a boda, the one we know. It's about a neighbor. It's never... the fruit does not fall far off from the tree.
And you see, we find that in the case where we see it's ladies who have been, you know, violated, you find that there's that sense of vulnerability because this person is a familiar one. We've heard of cases of date rape, for instance. So that kind of leaves people in a bit of a tricky situation, not knowing how do I trust you, just to be in a safe space, may not be a compromising space of, you know, of sexual nature, but how then can people stay alert and be sure that if I see these warning signs, I may need to figure out how to get out as soon as possible.
Remember, Dan, I talked about we should never ever blame the survivor at any instance, because the fact that somebody violated you, it's not because of where you are with them at what time and what you are doing at that particular time. And we must also get to a point where, especially, and I emphasize the bit about men, we need to train men to know when a woman says no, it's no. When anybody says no, it's no. Anything beyond no is a violation of their rights. Now, the problem that we're having as a country, again, is about the social acceptability of violence. Therefore, it becomes very difficult for somebody to say, I was violated. Well, I guess she cannot talk of Phil having violated her rather, because Phil is so known in these CSO circles as somebody who is fighting for the rights of women. How do you even turn around and say Phil violated you? Nobody will believe you. So we must start by saying anybody can be is a potential perpetrator of violence, including myself, because there are points when she may say no, and I think she's saying no because you know what I mean?
The theory of a woman's no, yes.
No means yes, and that can be very, and you know, even in workspaces, issues of sexual harassment, it happens. So we must believe it when people start talking about somebody crossed my boundary. Because as a community, as a society, we normally tend not to believe it when somebody tells us anything. Even the children, sometimes your child comes to you, especially for women, and this one I take it to the mothers especially. A child comes to you and tells you, Mom, uncle did this to me, and you're like, no, sitaki kusikia, hebu nyamaza unanipigia kelele. Before the child even says anything, you stop them from saying whatever happened to them. And we must allow ourselves to believe when somebody says that somebody did something to them. Let's start the process of holding that person accountable. Let's bring that to the fore, because the moment you stop them, you make others not to report these cases. So if today Wangeshi says Phil violated her, and nobody believes her, and then I go violate another lady somewhere, I'll continue doing it. And remember, it is a vicious cycle. It keeps on happening. If I violate one person today and I'm not held accountable, I'll do it again and again and again. And therefore, when people report, when people talk about this, we must stop it. And coming back to our justice system, I think I really must congratulate the judiciary for the steps that were taken, especially by the Makueni court, to expedite that process of sentencing Zomo, for instance. Because that really encourages people now to come out when they see action being taken. A lot of times, people don't report because there's no action. Even if I report, nothing will happen.
How do you partly think it's because Nzomo is not a somebody?
Not quite. I will say not quite, because remember even the cases of okay, the speed at which it went through is very. I mean, we must compliment the judge or the magistrate who did that. But at certain points, we also must fight impunity, like you're saying. Impunity is also something that is really taking us back, because like you're saying, there are people who are, I remember the case of the MP for the case that happened in Westland sometimes back, the rape case, is still, you know, the process is still going on, so you wonder where the survivor is. If the process is winding because of perhaps this is who and who in the society, I think that becomes a problem. But I must say, currently the Director of Public Prosecutions, the one that we have now, looking at the things that are happening around, they're taking some very good, we are having some good progress, including the way they are very fast at tweeting whenever these instances occur and they say something about it. I think that's what we need to see. And I think as a country we are moving forward, and progressively we are going towards that point where impunity will be a thing of the past.
And how do we then balance, Wangeshi, the aspect of someone may go and say, like you're saying, you should not, you know, victimize or demonize the victim. You know what I mean?
Actually, we call them survivors.
Survivors, yes, survivors. How do you balance with malice? You know, there are some cases where you'll find it's a person who, there's whatever you wanted to get from someone, but you did not, so you decided to become malicious and accuse them of, you know, of having you accuse them of being of having assaulted you.
But Dan, we say, rightfully say, that's why you have institutions that do the investigation. If an institution is doing the investigation, then they'll be able to find out, is this true or not true? And if we strengthen those institutions to be able to do their work, then also to be at a level that we are aware. If a man is approaching a lady and the lady says no, a no means no. There is no vote for yes. No, a no means no, and therefore it should be taken as a no. And if that matter is then reported, and then someone takes action in terms of even trying to do their deeper investigation, I mean, the truth will finally come out. But I think also what we would want to do, and you said the case of Zomo was done within a very, very short time. I think we must also acknowledge that there is corruption. Or there is also the current affair of Kenya, tuelewane. Tuelewane. And an envelope is passed, and when that envelope is not passed, then you see someone else, someone coming back and saying it was not paid. We've had instances where someone comes and reports the case, we're happy to go to court, but along the way they'll say tulielewana. So I think for me the level of awareness need to go up, and I'm happy that tomorrow we have an event where we can be able to have this conversation. It's happening at Uhuru Park, and what we have done is it's an obstacle race, and the obstacle race is really symbolic for us, because we are saying these are the challenges, these are the obstacles that the women and girls are going through every other day, and would want Kenyans to come and participate so that we can have this conversation even in a different way. I think we must also be able to have some innovation in it. So we partnered with an organization known as Smart Gym. So we're having fitness, but also an opportunity to be able to have this conversation. What must we be able to do differently? How are we going to level these obstacles? Because the obstacles are many. You have just seen there, to get a P3 form, it costs 5,000. That's an obstacle. How do we get that obstacle down?
And wait, this is going to be tomorrow. This is a gendathon.
This is the gendathon, and we are calling the obstacle race. It's going to happen at Uhuru Park. You can come in, Uhuru Gardens. You can come in as a team of 6, and to be able to participate is going to cost 8,000. If you come in as an individual, it's 2,000. If you come in to cheer and really support the cause, it's 500, and for kids, it's 250. And it's also going to be a fun event so that we can be able to have this conversation in an environment that is a bit relax, and really have take away what is it that I must be able to do, because change must come from I before even I take it out there.
Yeah, Dan, may I add something about
briefly, because we need to close.
When we have issues of alternative dispute resolution, please, I want people to know that when it comes to matters of sexual violence, they can never be resolved through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms.
That's the fact.
So if somebody defiled a child, somebody raped a woman, or sodomized a boy or something, you cannot talk between or amongst yourself. There's no kuelewana. Matters of sexual violence must only be resolved in court. And there's only one person that is allowed to bring a stop to it based on the legal processes and mechanisms for investigations, and that's the DPP. Anybody else, I cannot talk to Angesha and say, maneno tuache.
I'll just tell you something that Judge Kinoti, who's in charge of the DCI, shared. He was at an event about sexual-based violence.
Yes. About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. And he gave some very surprising and unfortunate information and revelations. He said, one, when it comes to these kind of cases, he admits that the police are part of the problem.
Oh yes.
He admits it himself, and considering his rank there, and he has been in other designated positions in the police before, it's quite telling. He says you'll find they'll be reluctant to actually get to the bottom of it. They will try and, he says he'll go and find the special case, special file. So it kind of makes a very bureaucratic thing that becomes frustrating.
Yes.
2, he said there's a time he experienced it, that he was actually telling the audience that was there that there was a case that he had at a hotel in Nairobi, a very prominent hotel in Nairobi, and he goes and they got the report and he sends his detectives there. They took like a week saying, we are still trying to get this information. He said he saw there was something wrong, because it had been said that there was an issue, might have been a robbery, but it seems his people went and found out that there was a sexual assault case, and so there was some, I think either they were trying to be compromised or something, but they kept dilly-dallying for a week. He says he went there himself. In 24 hours he had discovered it was a sexual assault case, and he had known even the individuals and everything within 24 hours. And he says After that, he traveled all over the country. When he came back, allegedly there was people who were planning on assassinating him.
Oh,
that's what he said. So you can see the kind of intimidation one on their end sometimes, and also the weak or wanting will to actually fight the vice. Yes, coming from. In closing, because we have to close.
Yes, plus also, I think even now for our police, very quickly, I think the police also need to we need to build their capacity on the laws. The police are the ones who are supposed to enforce the laws, but unfortunately, most of them don't even know those particular laws, especially that addresses issues of sexual and gender-based violence. For instance, if a police arrests somebody on a case that is sexual or sexual-based, they tend to record statement and take this person forward using the penal code, and in the penal code the only sections that we have is section 250 and section 251, which normally talks about common assaults. So when if it is rape, if it is defilement, or if it is sexual harassment of any of different nature, the police do not have the know-how, or sometimes the wherewithal to be able to address these issues. So I think at the crux of the matter is really to build the capacities of the police service, and most of the people who handle we have very good police officers. I know that because we work with them, and even the people who are posted at the gender desks should be people who have this knowledge about the laws that exist, because we have every other time we enact new laws, and it takes time for these laws to be, to create awareness to the police, especially who are the enforcers of these laws. So they sometimes we blame them for that, but a lot needs to be done just to bring to light the laws that we have as a country to be able to deter and to prevent violence from happening.
All right, I'd like us to stop there because otherwise we'll be late for our 1 o'clock bulletin.
You should have taken my closing remarks, Dan, just to say
15 seconds.
Yes, the county has a very big opportunity because we have both men and women. We have money that is coming to the county. Let's engage with that. Also, the institution that has been mandated to do this, there is demand to be able to get justice. Let the institution, whether it's the police, the judiciary, the office of ODPP, just to be able to take action. They have shown us the direction where we need to go. Let's keep the momentum.
Thank you, Wangeshi Wachira, the Executive Director of the Center for Rights, Education and Awareness, as well as Philip Otieno, the Executive Director of Advocates for Social Change Kenya, for speaking to us on NTV Today. NTV Today continues in a few minutes when we have the news at 1. My name is Dann Mwangi. Thank you for joining us.
Nasikia unidai, nasikia amina unidai, uko juu sana, nasikia unijidai, wendo rapi, utaitwa sema sahi, wewe ni fala, ono mesleki, wewe mjanja, wewe rapa feki.
Shake your bum bum, bum bum, shake your bum 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 bum. Giddy 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 go down, giddy 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 go down, giddy giddy giddy.
Basi hapa ndipo na ndipo hapa. Kwa majina wanaita Trevor O. NTV mambo yote. Jina la Yesu litafika everywhere. Unadansia Yesu gwara 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 gwara. Hakuna kama Yesu gwara gwara.
Nasikia unidai, nasikia amina unidai, uko juu sana, nasikia unijidai, wendo rapi, utaitwa sema sahi, wewe ni fala, ono mesleki, wewe mjanja, wewe rapa feki.
Shake your bum bum, bum bum. Shake your bum 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 bum. Giddy 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 go down, giddy 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 go down, giddy giddy giddy.
Basi hapa ndipo na ndipo hapa. Kwa majina wanaita Trevor O. NTV mambo yote.
Jina la Yesu litafika everywhere. Unadansia Yesu gwara 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 gwara. Hakuna kama Yesu gwara gwara.
Nasikia unidai, nasikia amina unidai, uko juu sana, nasikia unijidai, wendo rapi, utaitwa Sema sahi, wewe ni fala, ona umeselect, wewe mjanja, wewe ni rapa feki.
Shake your bum bum, bum bum. Shake your bum bum bum. I make you dance. Giddy 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 go down. Giddy 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 go down. Giddy giddy giddy.
Basi hapa ndipo na ndipo hapa. Kwa majina wanaita Trevor O. NTV mambo yote.
Jina la Yesu litafika everywhere. Unadansia Yesu gwara 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 gwara. Hakuna kama Yesu gwara gwara.
Nasikia unidai, nasikia amina unidai. Uko juu sana, nasikia unijidai. Wewe ndio rap utaitwa sema sahi, wewe ni fala, ona umeselect, wewe mjanja, wewe ni rapa feki.
Shake your bum bum, bum bum. Shake your bum bum bum. I make you dance. Giddy 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 go down. Giddy 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 go down. Giddy 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 giddy.
Basi hapa ndipo na ndipo hapa. Kwa majina wanaita Trevor O. NTV mambo yote.
This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumia tu your lines, unalike na mimi nakulike.
So
kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingori, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja, huko tuko kanisa huko.
Hello and welcome to NTV at 1, a continuation of NTV Today. My name is Dann Mwangi and thank you for joining us. Now, owners of the UK Centre in Nairobi's Westlands claim victimization after the demolition of the mall in Nairobi's Westlands started early this morning. The building's management says they will seek redress in court. Tenants of the building say the demolition is a huge blow, especially to supermarket chain Nakumatt, which added to the store that was part of its rival. And we're going to have some of the pictures of the demolition that happened earlier on, as well as what is happening right now. Not much activity at the moment happening. And this was earlier on. And like we've said, that Vera Shah, who's the property manager of UK Centre, says they will be going to court to challenge the demolition of the building as well, because they say that as of last evening, they were confident that there would be no demolitions. And aside from that, he says that they had gotten all the approvals from the building and deny that it was built on a river. He says it's a small stream that passes next to it and not a river. And as that last evening, like we said, they were confident there'll be no demolitions. And they say that they were not sure of who is undertaking this job. And in terms of the human element about this, over 350 people are uncertain about the fate of their jobs, and millions of shillings worth of property has been destroyed. And there has been heavy police presence at the centre. The river or stream that UK Centre is allegedly built on, according to Leila Mohammed, who's on the ground, says smells more of a sewer than a river, just pointing to the fact that there's been pollution of this river or of this water mass that is there. Now, the centre was constructed in 1994, and the owners are questioning why it was singled out in the entire Westlands neighbourhood, and they say the only notice they saw was on social media posts by Kenyans who are asking for the building to be brought down. Now, the stranded workers say they were not aware of the demolition, that it would happen today rather, though some owners of some of the stalls had begun removing their properties and their wares from the building yesterday. They are silently calling for the Oshwald Centre to be brought down as well, as they claim it is also built on riparian land. And this brings to question the concerns about what the president yesterday said that, you know, the government officials who approved this kind of buildings of putting up structures on riparian land should be prosecuted. And so this is just what you're seeing, are live pictures of the continuation of the demolitions there. And Leila Mohammed also informs us that the questions about, you know, Oshwald Centre, because there is even pictures doing the rounds online that you could see that there is a moving water body that is there. And so the huge machinery that you're seeing there, some of them have been doing rounds near Osho Health Center, but they did not. They've not begun demolishing the facility yet, the buildings yet, and we wait to see. This might be one of the ones that is going to be brought down any day from now. And like yesterday, the county government of Nairobi, that's Mike Sonko, said that they're not going to relent and they're not going to have an issue, as well. And just that's recapping what's been happening and just pointing out the fact that the owners of the UK Centre in Nairobi's Westlands claim victimization after demolition of the mall in Nairobi's Westlands started early this morning. The building's management say they will seek redress in court. Tenants of the building say the demolition is a huge blow, especially to the supermarket chain Nakumatt, who added that the store was part of its revival plan.
The green bulldozers arrived early at the UK Centre.
We apologize for that. We shall be getting to it in a bit, but just reminding you that the UK Centre has been brought down this morning, and right now not much activity is happening there. Pretty much just cleaning up of the rubble that has been left after the demolition that began at what some say is about 5 a.m. and the owners of the building had not known that it would happen today. And aside from that, we have the businesses there suffering. And the businesses have suffered because they have their wares, their the valued properties and assets in there. Some even have left money in there, and so now getting an opportunity to salvage the same may be very difficult. And so this is the reality of their lives, and they're, according to Leila Mohammed and the reports that she's gotten on the ground, about 350 people who are uncertain of the future of their jobs and whether they actually have a job to go to. We know that, for instance, when the Kileleshwa shell was demolished, as well as the Java House, sent out a notice, or rather a press statement, saying that they're going to transfer the various employees who are working at that branch to the other branches, especially because it was expanding on the same. But now we have again Nakumatt, which is just trying to get out of its what had been said a deathbed, having another blow to its health. And because this is one of the 7 stores that it is relying on in its recovery plan, and so this, as we saw earlier on, was a visibly concerning thing to Atul Shah, who's the managing director of the company, and we shall be having that information later on. Now I want to cross over to the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where the EACC was launching a survey on the Ministry of Forestry and Environment, and which it says is not an investigation, but it's something different. And Mel Miendo joins us from there live to give us an update and a recap of what happened. Mel.
Thank you so much, Dan. Earlier on, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, together with the Ministry of Environment, were here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center to launch that examination exercise that will be looking mainly at the policies, the procedures that have been ongoing in the Ministry of Environment. Now, the EACC have not waltzed their way into the Ministry of Environment Affairs, but rather it's because of the request that was made by the Cabinet Secretary, Keriako Tobiko, to actually invite them in to come and look at some of the policies and procedures in the Ministry of Environment, whether there is corruption or not. Now, some of the reports that the CEO of the EACC mentioned that he had seen with regards to the Ministry of Environment had also a lot of corruption. There was bribery, there was fraudulent acquisition, and these are some of the issues that made them come up with this examination exercise. Earlier on, I had mentioned that the CEO said that this is not an investigative procedure, rather it is an assessment exercise, and it will be done across the ministries in the cabinet. Also, one of the other ministries that have undergone this assessment exercise in March this year was the Ministry of Lands, as well as the Ministry of Interior, and now we have the Ministry of Environment. Now, one of the things that I'd like to mention is that there are 2 methods that this examination assessment exercise will be done. Now, the first method is formal and informal interviews, and so they will be talking to the officials in the various sectors in the Ministry of Environment. The second method rather, is a continuous analysis of all the documents that are in the ministry. This is regards to financial documents, any other documents with regards to acquisition, and all these documents must be brought to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So these are two main methods that the examination exercise will be done across the various sectors in the Ministry of Environment. Now, the CEO had mentioned that there has been a lot of apprehension and anxiety, especially amongst the officers in these various sectors, and he has asked them to only comply with what they are asked. If it's documents that they're asked to give, they should give them, and they should not run away from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission officers who will be handling these assessment exercise. And so that's a word to the various officers in the Ministry of Environment. Now, a team has been constituted by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission by the CEO. Now, this team is about 6 members, and they're all from the EACC. Now, these 6 members, they are varied. Now, we have some from the economic sector, we have some from the accounting sector, financial sector, among sectors that they will be looking at. Each and every officer will be looking at their specific sector. And so this is the 6-team member, and they will be going to the various sectors in the Ministry of Environment. So the CEO has been talking so much about this. Earlier on, he had mentioned that there will be counties, about 20 counties have already undergone this assessment exercise, but this is different because it is dealing with ministries. Let's hear what he had to say earlier on here at the KICC.
It is my hope that the ministry will continue with the partnership we have created so far, and that the recommendations which will be provided in the final report will be fully implemented and sustained. And of course, on that we rely on the leadership of the ministry, particularly from the PS, from the administrative and control position that you hold. And I believe the output of the exercise will make it better and transform processes. And I'm sure the ministry, being one of the central institutions in the country, whatever changes that take place at the ministry will also spur or cascade to some other ministries and structures within the government. And of course, largely on our livelihoods, our survival, matters of climate, matters of land, conservation of environment, and all this. Just like land, the purpose of your ministry goes to our basics, the basic needs, and our survival as humanity. So I really am optimistic that together we are going to achieve a lot.
You've had the CEO there mention about recommendations. Now, these recommendations will only be made after 4 months. That's when the report will be presented to the Ministry of Environment from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And so that's when we will get that report as well as recommendations. Back to you, Dan.
Very much, Mel Mendo in the capital, and we shall now be crossing over to the other city in the country where Attorney General Paul Kehara has cautioned lawyers against engaging in acts that breach trust among them. Speaking at the ongoing LSK annual conference in Diani in the county of Kwale, the AG told the lawyers to uphold the spirit of the legal practice. He also assured them that he is on course with his quest to transform the legal sector in the country.
We have the resolve. We have the technology. In the framework I've just described, we have the agencies working together, and I chair them. They will run to the mountains, they will run to the grasslands, they will run to the forest, they hata wakiwa chini ya maji. We will bring them down. And we will bring them down under the rule of law, but we will lock them up.
Across boundaries, and boundaries are not as neat as they are also done in the maps. So certain cooperations across the boundaries for socio-political advancement is usually required. So when governments come together, states come together to do that cooperation is when we say they are integrating.
Despite the government provision that youth, women and persons with disabilities be awarded 30% of all government procurement tenders, young people are yet to maximize on this opportunity. Speaking during the International Youth Week celebrations in the county of Nakuru, Governor Lee Kenyanjui says the county is intent on increasing youth resource centers dedicated to teaching the young men and women in the county how to successfully apply for tenders with the government. This Governor Kenyanjui said will help in creating opportunities for self-employment for the young people who make up more than 60% of the country's population. The Nakuru Youth Week ends today with the young people drawn from all over the county showcasing their talents and skills in governance, arts and entrepreneurship.
Blessed dancers. Hawa ni vijana wa hapa kwetu Nakuru.
Wacha tupatie vijana ajira ambazo zitawasaidia. Sio kupimia ama kupatia ile kitu unajua hata wewe mwenyewe iwezi kaweka hunga katika mesa jioni.
If you started with a small tender of maybe 2 million, then next time you can go to 5, and we want by the time we are 5 or 6 years from now, we want to see young men and women, maybe that time they will not be very young, who have come out of this particular nurturing or talent that we can be able to develop over this particular time.
Now to some sad news, and 3 people have died and 12 others injured in an accident that happened in Kapiti Plains along Mombasa-Nairobi Highway. The accident happened when the 18-seater PSV hit a stalled lorry before it was rammed from behind by another one. According to County Commander Samuel Mukindia, the injured were rushed to Machakos Level 5 Hospital and the 3 bodies were taken to Machakos Level 5 Mortuary. Now, more than 3,000 cases of gender-based violence have been reported in Kilifi County for the last 1 year. According to Haki Africa Organization Deputy Executive Salma Hamed, many abused women fail to report because they lack money to fill P3 forms. Kilifi County has recorded a high number of such incidences, with cases of at least 40 women and underage girls being raped in the last 3 months. Hamed called upon the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs to address the challenges facing women, claiming that a high number of cases are swept under the carpet.
Kuna kesi zopungua 3,000 katika kipindi cha June 2017 to June 2018 zikiweza kuripotiwa katika department ya county government na mtu ambaye kwamba anasimamia masuala ya watoto, za kesi za watoto ambao kwamba wanadhulumiwa. Vile vile pia kuna kesi zopungua 40 katika miezi mitatu zimeweza kuandikwa chini ama ziweza kuripotiwa za wanawake ambao kwamba wameweza kulawitiwa na watoto wadogo kuweza kunajisiwa.
And that's very unfortunate, because if you do the math, it means about 8 people are raped in a day in that county alone, and these are the reported cases. Now on to other stories, and more than 6,000 families displaced by floods are set to benefit from a housing project under the Kenya Red Cross. Speaking in Kabarnet Town during the launch of baseline survey of people living with disabilities, Kenya Red Cross Secretary General Abbas Gule said that the central bank has released 1 billion shillings for a pilot program in Kilifi and Tana River counties. 600 million shillings will be used to construct houses for the victims, and 280 million shillings will go towards health and water. Out of the 6,500 houses houses it plans to construct, 279 will be built in Baringo South for Ngombo, Eldume and Kapindasum flood victims.
The works have started. It's going to be very participatory, involving the community itself, involving county government and central government. So we have the buy-in of everybody, and once we agree how many houses, where and type of house and the cost, then we go ahead and do that. So that's what is ongoing. In some counties like Kilifi, we already have done the pilot houses. We're now just going to start scaling up, and we want to do this before the rains in October.
The quality and telecommunication networks can be increased through proper installation that also has a hand in increasing the speed of internet and stabilizing the network. These are the remarks of Murphy East Africa Company, which has been providing the network boost services to optimize towers to the sub-Saharan Africa for the past 10 years. During an event to showcase its services, the company encouraged the government of Kenya to continue empowering the youth through incorporating such services. Government is set to establish special zones for production of livestock for export. Speaking at the Jamhuri Showground in Nairobi when he presided over the official opening of the 2018 Livestock Breeders' Show and Sale, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced government plans to establish 50 special zones, technically known as feedlots, for production of livestock for the export market. The new initiative will be done in collaboration with strategic partners with the aim of mitigating against climate change and saving farmers from the losses they incurred during drought. The president said the feedlot initiative is part of the broad livestock value chain improvement program, which is being implemented by the government and partners.
By previous speakers, you're also attracting farmers and stakeholders from other parts of our region, and I think that is proof of the standards that we are already setting and the standards of this Breeders' Show.
Let's step out of Kenya for a bit, and Western governments and the UN expressed alarm as top Zimbabwe opposition figure Tendai Biti appeared in court after a dramatic attempt to flee to neighboring Zambia and claim asylum. Biti, a veteran figure in the opposition movement for democratic change, was taken handcuffed into a courtroom in Harare under a heavy police presence to face
laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country. The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa. I love this guy. The hub where humor meets sense.
Unatumiaga tu your lines, like, na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja. Huko tuko kanisa huko.
Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country. The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa. I love this guy. The hub where humor meets sense.
Unatumiaga tu your lines, like, na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja. Huko tuko kanisa huko.
Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country. The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Unatumiaga tu your lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike.
So
kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingori, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution.
Tia club Kashiwa Razor, after his confirmed transfer was completed, becoming the first Kenyan footballer to play professionally in Japan. The 24-year-old has been acquired by the Japanese league side on a 3-year contract from Chinese club Guizhou Zhisheng. Media reports suggest the player will now pocket 15 million shillings as monthly salary at his new workstation, translating to a 5 million shillings increase. However, the Harambee Stars striker's overall value in the transfer market has decreased by 100 million shillings after this move at a cost of 300 million shillings. Guizhou paid Sweden side IF Djurgården 400 million shillings to acquire Olunga in mid-2016. He joins the latest big names players to move to Japan in the likes of European stars Andre Iniesta, Lucas Podolski and Fernando Torres. And Athletics Kenya will liaise with Athletics Kenya Police Service and any other committee to see that the late 2015 World 400 meters hurdles champion Nicholas Bett is given a befitting and hero's send-off. At the same time, a group of athletes led by AK Athletes representatives Milka Chemos will hold a consultative meeting on Friday at Eldoret Sports Club to boost any other burial arrangements. AK President Jackson Tuwe already discussed with National Police Service Athletics chairman, that is Joseph Kiget, about the athlete's death and will join hands to ensure the burial arrangements are smooth. Bett died at 28 years old in a road accident near Lesos, Nandi County, while driving home from Nairobi in the early hours of Wednesday. Bett will be buried next Friday at his Simat home in Uasin Gishu County. To some rally, and Carl Flash Tundo, navigated by Team Jessop in a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 10, will be the first one off the ramp as the sixth leg of the 2018 Kenya National Rally Championship zooms off in Kilifi County. The Top Fry sponsored driver will be seeking to win his fourth successive rally of the season at sea level. He leads the KNRC log on 100 points against Baldev Chaga, who despite retiring on the belated third round at Lisa Farm retained the second spot on 71 points. Second off the ramp will be Onka Rai, navigated by Gavin Lawrence in a Skoda Fabia R5. Chaga has been seeded third ahead of Subaru's Eric Bengi, Tajvir Rai, Jasmine Ghana and Farhaz Khan. Currently tops Group N in front of Farhaz. The cars will traverse Bamba and Ganza regions, which have been synonymous with the Mombasa Motor Club Rally. Inua kidogo. And Manchester United get the 2018-2019 Premier League season campaign underway tonight as they host Leicester City. And Jose Mourinho is without 6 first-team players out injured. United will miss the services of midfield duo Nemanja Matic and Ander Herrera, as well as defenders Antonio Valencia.
In church. Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane. Hakuna kungoja. Huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely! Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country. The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely. Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country.
Onda kita nipe tikiti.
The Wicked Edition every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely. Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country.
Onda kita nipe tikiti.
The Wicked Edition every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely. Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country.
Onda kita nipe tikiti.
The Wicked Edition every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely. Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country.
Onda kita nipe tikiti.
The Wicked Edition every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit.
Just a bit with Jane Goiri and Yoshua Makori. Kudunda Dunda Wanjani is going to be happening on NTV Sasa in just a bit. And the team is already in studio, jumping around, being the sports day and being playful as they are. My name is Dann Mwangi. Thanks for joining us. I'll be with you at 4 p.m. Have a great afternoon.
Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike na mimi nakulike. So kwa Mrs. Kingori.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. Kingo, an expert in the best medicine.
Listening to his solution if you crossed him in church.
Nikienda kanisa mtu alitukane, hakuna kungoja huko tuko kanisa huko.
Surely. Laughter served in the right dosage for the whole country.
Onda kita nipe tikiti.
The Wicked Edition every Friday from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV. This is the headquarters of wit in Africa.
I love this guy.
The hub where humor meets sense.
Wewe unatumiaga tu hiyo lines, unanilike